There is something in life that we often overlook, yet it has a much deeper impact than we realize. It is simple, accessible to everyone, costs nothing, and requires no special skills. Yet it has the power to transform environments, hearts, and even the way we see our day-to-day life. That something is gratitude. From the smallest to the most influential, everyone responds when someone shows genuine appreciation. A simple thank you can lift spirits, heal broken relationships, or give meaning to what seemed insignificant. Though it may seem small, gratitude carries enormous weight. And if it can have such a powerful effect among us, we must ask ourselves, how much more valuable and meaningful is it to God? Today, I want to invite you to pause for a moment, reflect, understand, and put this principle into practice in your life. Scripture tells us, "I will bless the Lord at all times. His praise shall continually be in my mouth." These words do not speak of isolated moments or special occasions. They speak of a constant attitude. To bless God at all times means living in a way where gratitude does not depend on what happens around us, but on an internal choice. It means learning to give thanks not only when everything goes our way, but also when we don't understand what is happening. Because gratitude is not merely a reaction, it is a daily choice. It is remembering all that God has already done, trusting in what He will do, and recognizing what is already present in our lives. Perhaps today things are not as we would like. Perhaps there are worries, unresolved problems, or situations that overwhelm us. But even in the midst of that, one thing remains true. Not everything is missing. There are things for which we can still give thanks. Often we think we need something extraordinary to be grateful, a visible miracle, a clear sign, or an obvious change. But gratitude does not start with the big things. It begins with the simple, with opening our eyes in the morning, with the ability to breathe, with having one more chance to start again. Not everyone had that privilege today, and that, though it may seem small, is deeply valuable. When we learn to see this way, something changes inside us. We stop focusing only on what is missing and begin to appreciate what is already here. That internal change transforms the way we live. Gratitude doesn't erase problems, but it does change how we face them. Today, you don't need to have everything solved to begin giving thanks. You don't need to feel strong. You don't need all the answers. You just need to take one step. Acknowledge that even now, there are reasons to give thanks. And from there, we begin. God, today we come to you as we are, without pretending to be perfect, without hiding what we feel. We bring what is inside us, the good and the heavy, and yet we choose to give thanks. Thank you for life. Thank you for this day. Thank you for what we can see and for what we do not yet understand. Teach us to live with a grateful heart, not only in easy moments, but also in the midst of challenges and trials. Help us recognize your hand in the everyday, in the simple things, in what we often overlook. Because we know that when we learn to give thanks, something begins to change within us, and that change transforms everything. Many times, we think we should only give thanks when everything is going well, when there are no problems, when everything seems perfect, when life gives us exactly what we want. But the Bible teaches us differently. It reminds us that gratitude does not depend on circumstances, but on the choice of our heart. In 1 Thessalonians 5:18, we find a clear instruction. Give thanks in all circumstances, for this is the will of God for you in Christ Jesus. All circumstances, not just the good ones, not only the bright days, not only when things go the way we want. This includes the difficult days, the moments of uncertainty, the times when we feel like nothing is moving forward. Giving thanks in these situations does not mean ignoring reality or pretending that everything is fine. It means trusting that God is present and that His goodness remains, even when we do not see it immediately. Sometimes it seems impossible to find reasons to be grateful. No spectacular miracles happened today, no visible achievements, no immediate answers. It is in these moments that we must cultivate gratitude intentionally, because gratitude does not come only from the extraordinary. It comes from recognizing the simple and constant, the protection we feel without even noticing it, the food on our table, the opportunity to open our eyes this morning, family, friends, and even the challenges that help us grow. The psalmist says, "This is the day that the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it." Every day we breathe is a gift. Every sunrise is a small miracle. Every everyday detail can be a reason for gratitude if we learn to see it that way. Gratitude is not just about words, but about perspective. When we choose to see God's daily gifts, our heart changes. We become more aware, more optimistic, and more at peace. And there's more. Gratitude also strengthens us. When we give thanks even in the middle of trials, we remember that God has been faithful before. We recall His past blessings, and that gives us hope for the present and future. That's why gratitude becomes a powerful weapon against despair and discouragement. It reminds us that we are not alone, that God's goodness endures, and that He continues to work even when we do not immediately perceive it. Today, I invite you to practice gratitude consciously. Before getting up, give thanks for the new day. During your tasks, find reasons to give thanks. At the end of the day, reflect on at least 3 things you are grateful for. When we do this, we begin to live in a constant attitude of gratitude, not as an empty ritual, but as a genuine expression of our faith and trust in God. Because giving thanks transforms our mind, our heart, and our life. It is not always easy to give thanks. When we face trials, disappointments, or moments of pain, our hearts tend to focus on what is missing or what went wrong. But it is precisely on those difficult days when gratitude becomes most powerful. Because giving thanks in the midst of difficulty reminds us that God is still faithful, even when we don't understand the situation. Sometimes we forget all the times God has helped, protected, and provided for us. And when a challenge comes, it feels like those memories are far away, as if they never existed. The practice of gratitude helps us remember those testimonies of His goodness. It allows us to see that the Lord has sustained us before and can do it again. Remembering His past wonders gives us strength for the present and confidence for the future. Giving thanks in difficulty does not mean denying pain, but acknowledging that God is with us despite it. It means deciding to focus on what we can be grateful for, the strength He gives us to continue, the lessons we learn in trials, the unseen blessings that only He can reveal. When we cultivate this habit, we discover something wonderful. Gratitude transforms our perspective. What once seemed heavy becomes an opportunity for growth. What seemed lacking becomes enough when we recognize God's provision. What seemed dark is illuminated by the certainty of His constant love. Jesus gave us a clear example in the Bible. Before feeding the crowd with loaves and fishes, He gave thanks. He first expressed gratitude for what He had on hand, and then the multiplication happened. This teaches us that gratitude opens doors to blessing. We don't wait for abundance to give thanks. We give thanks and allow abundance to manifest. Gratitude also protects us from despair and discouragement. When we give thanks even for small things, our hearts fill with joy and peace. It reminds us that God continues to work even when we don't see it immediately. So, on difficult days, make gratitude your daily practice. Find at least one thing to be thankful for each morning. Remember a past blessing whenever you feel overwhelmed. Keep an open heart, seeking God's presence in every situation. Gratitude in difficult moments not only lifts the soul, but also strengthens faith. It teaches us that our trust does not depend on circumstances, but on who God is in every situation in our lives. Gratitude is not just a fleeting feeling, it's a lifestyle. When we make giving thanks a daily practice, we start to see life with new eyes. Every day becomes an opportunity to recognize God's goodness, not just in the extraordinary, but in the ordinary. Gratitude changes us from the inside. It helps us focus on the positive rather than being stuck on the negative. It teaches us to value every detail: a friend's smile, a moment of rest, the food on our table, the simple fact of waking up to a new day. Moreover, gratitude strengthens our relationships. When we are grateful to those around us, we convey appreciation and love. This creates an environment of peace and respect, and often, by showing gratitude toward others, we also see God's hand in them. Another important aspect is that gratitude connects us constantly with God. We do not need a spectacular reason to approach Him. We can give thanks simply for His presence, guidance, and daily protection. Every moment of gratitude is an act of faith, a reminder that we trust in His love and care, even when circumstances are not perfect. Living in gratitude also helps us overcome comparison and dissatisfaction. Instead of focusing on what we lack, we learn to focus on what we have and what God has given us. This gives us peace and allows us to live contentedly regardless of external circumstances. Even the smallest details become great when we see them as God's blessings. A sunrise, a roof over our head, a moment of rest, the food on the table, a friend who listens. All deserve thanks. When we recognize these small things, our perspective changes and our hearts fill with joy. Daily gratitude also prepares us to face challenges with resilience. A grateful heart does not break easily. Even when facing difficulties, we remember that God has sustained us before and can do it again. This gives us strength to continue, hope to persevere, and joy even in the midst of trials. Finally, gratitude opens the door to new blessings. When we give thanks, our heart aligns with God's will and we become receptive to His work in our lives. It is not about accumulating things, but about recognizing the spiritual and emotional abundance God has already given us. Living with daily gratitude transforms us into happier, more patient, and more confident people. It helps us respond to life with love and faith and inspires others to do the same. It is a journey that never ends because there will always be reasons to give thanks and ways to grow in gratitude. Often we think we need big signs or miracles to feel grateful. However, God is present in the simplest details of our daily life, opening our eyes in the morning, feeling fresh air, hearing a child laugh, or enjoying a moment of peace. All of this is a gift of His grace. True gratitude arises when we learn to notice and value these small blessings. It is not just about waiting for the extraordinary, it is about recognizing that God continually acts on our behalf even when we do not see it immediately. By practicing this daily gratitude, our perception of life changes. We begin to see the world with more positive eyes and a more contented heart. Even problems and challenges become opportunities to learn, grow, and depend more on God. It is important to remember that gratitude strengthens our spirit. When we give thanks for what we have, even in difficult circumstances, our faith deepens and our hope is renewed. We realize that joy does not depend on circumstances, but on our focus on God's goodness. Gratitude also helps us overcome dissatisfaction and comparison. Instead of looking at what we lack, we learn to value what we have. Every meal, every relationship, every moment of peace is a reason to give thanks. And when we live with this grateful heart, we also inspire others to recognize God's goodness. Another key aspect is that gratitude teaches us to live in the present. When we give thanks for today, we stop worrying excessively about the past or the future. We recognize that each day is a gift of God, and our joy lies in making the most of it. It is not always easy to give thanks. Sometimes life presents situations that make us feel tired, confused, or discouraged. However, the Bible teaches us to give thanks in all circumstances, not just when everything goes well. Gratitude in difficult times transforms our perspective. When we choose to focus on what God has already done for us, even in the midst of problems, our mind is strengthened and our heart fills with hope. Instead of focusing on what we lack or on the pain, we see God's faithfulness and remember His promises. Giving thanks in adversity also helps us maintain calm and inner peace. It reminds us that we are not alone and that God has control over every detail of our life. Giving thanks in difficult moments does not mean ignoring the problem, but acknowledging that God can work even in difficulties. Often, gratitude arises when we make a conscious effort. It can be as simple as giving thanks for breathing, food, a roof over our head, or the love of those around us. These small acts of gratitude strengthen our faith and help us find joy even on the darkest days. Moreover, practicing gratitude in the midst of trials prepares us to receive future blessings. When we learn to trust and give thanks even when we do not see immediate results, God can perform miracles that exceed our expectations. It is like planting seeds of faith. What we sow today in gratitude will blossom into blessings tomorrow. Let us also remember that gratitude in difficulty inspires others. When we share a grateful heart, even in challenging times, our words and actions can strengthen those going through similar trials. Thus, gratitude not only helps us, but becomes a beacon of hope for others. Finally, a grateful heart keeps us close to God. It reminds us that His love does not depend on our circumstances. Even when everything seems uncertain, gratitude keeps us connected to His faithfulness, care, and constant presence. Gratitude not only transforms our hearts, but also flows to those around us. When we live with a grateful heart, our attitude is reflected in our words and actions. It becomes a silent example of faith and joy, showing others God's presence in our lives. Being thankful helps us improve our relationships. A sincere thank you, a gesture of recognition, or an act of kindness can strengthen friendships, marriage, family, and community. When we show gratitude, we reduce conflicts and cultivate harmony because we recognize the value of others and what they do for us. Additionally, gratitude helps us see the good in others. Instead of focusing on mistakes or shortcomings, we learn to appreciate the effort, dedication, and love others put into their actions. This not only enriches our relationships, but also makes us more humble and understanding. Gratitude also has a contagious effect. When we express thanks out loud, we inspire others to do the same. A team, family, or group of friends where gratitude is habitual becomes a space of joy, cooperation, and mutual support. Another important point is that gratitude allows us to forgive more easily. When our hearts focus on what is good and on blessings, offenses and grudges lose their power. In this way, gratitude not only protects us from resentment, but also strengthens our inner peace in relationships. Finally, gratitude helps us be a light in the world. A grateful heart reflects God's goodness and conveys hope to those around us. Through our gratitude, others can see God's love and faithfulness in action, motivating them to draw closer to Him. Remember, a grateful heart is not kept only for itself. It is a gift that can transform lives, relationships, and entire communities. Gratitude not only transforms our hearts and relationships, it also strengthens our faith. When we give thanks to God in every situation, we learn to trust Him even when we don't understand what is happening. Gratitude reminds us that God has been faithful in the past and will continue to be faithful in the future. A constant practice of gratitude helps us focus on God's promises instead of worrying about present problems. Every thank you we utter reminds us that He is active in our lives even in difficult moments. When we face trials, gratitude allows us to see beyond immediate pain. It helps us appreciate the small daily miracles, a day of health, a roof over our head, a loved one's smile, the opportunity to learn something new. By giving thanks, our spiritual eyes open to see God's work in every detail. Gratitude also gives us strength to persevere. When we recognize what God has done before, facing new challenges becomes easier because we trust in His guidance and provision. It motivates us to move forward, even when results are not immediate or visible. Additionally, gratitude protects us from doubt and despair. By focusing on blessings, our hearts fill with hope and courage, and our decisions are made from trust in God, not fear. Another benefit of gratitude in faith is that it deepens our prayer life. When we give thanks before asking, our prayer becomes more sincere and confident, and our relationship with God is strengthened. Thus, gratitude is not just a reaction, it becomes an active tool for spiritual growth. In summary, gratitude transforms our view of life and keeps us steadfast in faith. It reminds us that each day is an opportunity to recognize God's goodness, and true faith is cultivated when our hearts are grateful regardless of circumstances. When we live with a grateful heart, something amazing happens. God begins to multiply His blessings in our lives. It's not about receiving more material things, but about recognizing and attracting the spiritual, emotional, and relational abundance God already wants to give us. Gratitude changes our perspective. Instead of focusing on what we lack, we clearly see what we already have and how each thing, big or small, contributes to our life. This shift in focus allows us to appreciate every opportunity, every relationship, every lesson, and maximize the potential of what God gives us. God delights in a grateful heart. When we give thanks sincerely, we not only acknowledge His work, but we invite Him to act even more powerfully in our lives. As Scripture says, "Give thanks in all circumstances, for this is the will of God for you." Gratitude activates God's will and places us in a position to receive more of His favor. Moreover, gratitude opens doors to healthy relationships. When we are grateful, others notice. Our positive and humble attitude generates trust, friendship, and cooperation. A grateful person radiates light, attracting opportunities and connections that might otherwise go unnoticed. Gratitude also makes us resilient in the face of challenges. When we face difficulties, giving thanks for what we do have gives us clarity and strength to act, instead of getting stuck in complaint or frustration. Every small thank you we speak is a reminder that God remains faithful even when circumstances seem difficult. Finally, practicing gratitude helps us see God's hand in everything. From everyday moments to unexpected events, we learn to recognize His guidance and trust His purpose, allowing us to make wiser decisions and live in peace. In conclusion, gratitude is the key that opens invisible doors. It connects us with God, strengthens our relationships, protects us from despair, and places us on a path where blessings flow naturally. Living with gratitude is a lifestyle that transforms not only our hearts, but also our destiny. Now that we have explored the power of gratitude and how it can transform our hearts, relationships, and destiny, it's time to learn to apply it in each day of our lives. Living with gratitude does not mean waiting for great miracles every day. It means recognizing and giving thanks for the small and large blessings, from the air we breathe to the people around us, from moments of joy to the challenges that teach us to grow. A simple practice is to start and end the day with gratitude. Upon waking, thank God for a new day, your health, your family, and the opportunity to move forward. Before sleeping, review the good things that happened during the day and give thanks even for the challenges, because they made you stronger and wiser. Another key is to express gratitude to others. Say thank you sincerely, acknowledge the efforts of others, and show appreciation. It strengthens bonds and brings joy to both the giver and receiver. Remember, gratitude is not only felt, it is shared. Living gratefully also helps us maintain hope and joy even on difficult days. When we adopt gratitude as a lifestyle, every moment becomes an opportunity to grow and connect with God because we learn to see His hand working constantly. Today, I invite you to make gratitude a daily habit. Take a moment each day to give thanks, write down your blessings, pray sincerely, and look at life with eyes full of joy. You'll see how little by little your heart fills with peace and your life with blessings. And before we say goodbye, I encourage you to subscribe to this space so that together we continue learning to live each day with gratitude and faith. Don't forget to leave your comments about what impacted you most and what blessings you want to share with the community. And remember, as I like to say, A grateful heart never goes hungry and always finds chocolate in the pantry.